Today we're taking a deep dive into one of the most challenging periods in American history, the Great Depression. The economic collapse of the 1930s left millions without jobs and struggling to survive. But in the face of adversity, families found creative ways to stretch every penny, and food became one of the biggest challenges. In today's video, we're exploring the desperate foods that kept people alive during the Great Depression, how they survived on next to nothing. Number 1. Hoover Stew. Hoover Stew was a dish that became iconic during the Great Depression, particularly because of its association with soup kitchens and government relief programs. Named after President Herbert Hoover, who was often blamed for the economic downturn, this stew was a budget-friendly meal made from simple, inexpensive ingredients that could feed a large number of people. The dish typically consisted of macaroni or pasta, canned tomatoes, and whatever vegetables or meat were available, often hot dogs or canned beans. The ingredients were boiled together in large pots to create a hearty, filling meal. Hoover Stew was commonly served in community settings, such as soup kitchens, and became a staple for many families who were struggling to make ends meet. Its simplicity made it easy to prepare in large quantities, often feeding entire neighborhoods. The stew's flexibility was key. It could be adapted based on what ingredients were on hand, making it a true survival food. Families who couldn't afford fresh ingredients relied on canned goods or food rations provided by relief programs. Today, Hoover Stew is remembered not only as a product of hard times, but also as a testament to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of people during the Great Depression. Number 2. Cornbread and Milk. Cornbread and milk was a common dish during the Great Depression, offering a simple yet nourishing meal that required few ingredients. Cornmeal, the main ingredient in cornbread, was both cheap and widely available, often included in government food rations. Cornbread itself was incredibly versatile, with variations ranging from sweet to savory, depending on what ingredients were accessible. For many families, milk was a luxury, but when available, it added both nutrition and flavor to the meal. The combination of cornbread and milk was both practical and comforting. Many people would crumble day-old cornbread into a bowl and pour milk over it, creating a soft, easy-to-eat dish that could serve as breakfast, lunch, or even a light dinner. This dish was especially common in rural communities where dairy farms were prevalent. It also became a way to use leftover or stale cornbread, avoiding waste, an essential practice during times of economic hardship. This simple dish was not only a means to stretch ingredients, but also a reminder of the resourcefulness required to survive the Great Depression. Cornbread and milk provided both carbohydrates and protein, essential for maintaining energy, especially for labor-intensive jobs or families with children. Today, the dish holds a nostalgic value for many people whose families relied on it, evoking memories of a time when food was scarce. But people made do with what they had. Number 3. Fried Bologna. Fried bologna became a popular and accessible meal during the Great Depression, primarily because bologna was one of the cheapest meats available at the time. Its affordability made it a go-to protein source for families with limited budgets. Unlike other meats that required refrigeration and had shorter shelf lives, bologna, which is a processed and cured meat, could last longer, making it more practical during a time when food waste was not an option. Frying bologna added flavor and transformed the cold slices into a hot, satisfying meal. The heat would cause the slices to curl up, giving the dish a unique texture, and families often paired it with bread for a simple, quick sandwich. Adding mustard or pickles was common if they had any on hand, giving the meal a little more flavor without adding much cost. This method was a practical way to elevate a basic ingredient and make it feel like a complete meal. Fried bologna was especially popular in rural areas and among working-class families because it required little preparation and could be cooked on a stovetop or even over an open flame. It was versatile enough to be served as breakfast, lunch, or dinner, depending on what other ingredients were available. This simplicity made it a key dish during the Great Depression, reflecting the resourcefulness of the era, where inexpensive processed meats became central to survival. Number 4. Depression cake. Depression cake, also known as wacky cake or war cake, emerged during the Great Depression as a clever solution to the scarcity of ingredients like eggs, butter, and milk, which were either too expensive or unavailable. The cake was designed to be made without these ingredients, yet still deliver a satisfying dessert. This was achieved by using vinegar and baking soda as leavening agents, which allowed the cake to rise even without eggs. Oil replaced butter for moisture, and water stood in for milk. Sugar was often rationed or in short supply, so the cake was usually less sweet than modern desserts, though some recipes included molasses, raisins, or spices like cinnamon and cloves to enhance the flavor. Depression cake was typically made in a single bowl, reducing the need for excessive kitchen tools or equipment, making it a practical one-pot dessert. It was often baked in rectangular pans and sliced into squares, served plain or with a simple glaze if extra ingredients were on hand. This cake became a symbol of resilience and ingenuity during hard times. Even without luxury ingredients, families could create something special to lift their spirits. Depression cake recipes have survived through generations, often passed down as reminders of the creativity and resourcefulness required to get through economic hardship. Number 5, milk toast. Milk toast was a common comfort food during the Great Depression, particularly because it required only 2 simple ingredients, bread and milk. This dish was popular due to its affordability, ease of preparation, and ability to stretch limited food supplies. To make milk toast, bread, usually day-old or slightly stale, was toasted and then softened by pouring warm milk over it. Some families would add a pinch of sugar, cinnamon, or even butter if those items were available, but the base remained very basic. The simplicity of milk toast made it versatile for all meals. It could serve as breakfast for children, a light meal for the elderly or sick, or even a supper for families with little else to eat. The dish was especially valued because milk provided important nutrition like calcium and protein, while bread offered carbohydrates, both necessary for energy during physically demanding labor or long days of looking for work. This dish wasn't just about sustenance, it provided a sense of warmth and comfort in tough times. Milk toast could be made quickly and affordably, which was critical during an era where many families had to stretch every ingredient as far as possible. Number 6, dandelion salad. Dandelion salad became a crucial part of the diet during the Great Depression as people turned to foraging for food to supplement their limited supplies. Dandelions were abundant and free, making them a lifesaver for those who couldn't afford to buy fresh produce. The entire plant could be used, but the greens were most commonly consumed in salads. These greens are highly nutritious, packed with vitamins A, C, and K, as well as calcium and iron, which were important for maintaining health when food options were scarce. Preparing dandelion salad was simple. The leaves were typically gathered from yards or nearby fields, washed and eaten raw. Sometimes they were mixed with wild onions or other foraged greens for variety. Given their naturally bitter taste, dandelion greens were often paired with a homemade dressing made from vinegar or bacon fat to balance out the flavor. In rural areas, if families had access to eggs or lard, these ingredients were sometimes added for extra protein and fat. Dandelion salad not only provided necessary nutrition, but also symbolized resilience and the ability to thrive using nature's overlooked resources. Foraging was essential, and dishes like dandelion salad reminded people of their resourcefulness in the face of hardship. Number 7, potato pancakes. Potato pancakes were a popular, resourceful dish during the Great Depression, providing a way to stretch the most basic and affordable ingredient, potatoes. These pancakes were typically made by grating raw potatoes and combining them with flour, water, and sometimes an egg if available. Seasoning was minimal, often just salt and pepper, as many families had to conserve what they had. The mixture was then fried in a bit of lard or oil, both of which were often scarce but necessary to get the crisp golden finish that made the dish more appetizing. Potato pancakes were prized for their versatility. They could be served for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and because they were filling, they were often eaten as a main dish when meat was unavailable. Some families added onions or garlic for extra flavor when they could afford it. But even without these additions, the pancakes were a satisfying and hearty meal. The simple ingredients and preparation made this dish essential for families trying to make the most out of limited food supplies, and it remains a nostalgic reminder of that era's resourcefulness. Number 8, mock apple pie. Mock apple pie became a Depression-era staple when real apples were too expensive or unavailable. This inventive dessert used Ritz crackers or saltine crackers in place of apples, yet managed to replicate the texture and flavor of a traditional apple pie. The brilliance of the recipe lay in its simplicity. The crackers would absorb the sweet spice syrup made from sugar, cinnamon, lemon juice, and water, mimicking the taste of baked apples. The pie was often baked with a typical pie crust, creating the illusion of an authentic apple pie when viewed from the outside. The key ingredient, crackers, provided the same soft, slightly chewy texture that apples would offer after baking, making it difficult to tell the difference at first bite. Mock apple pie was not only a creative solution to ingredient shortages, but also a testament to the resourcefulness of families during tough economic times. By substituting expensive ingredients with pantry staples, people could still enjoy comforting desserts even when their budgets were stretched thin. Number 9, bean soup. Bean soup was an essential meal during the Great Depression because beans were one of the most affordable and accessible sources of protein. Dried beans, particularly navy, pinto, and kidney beans, were cheap and could be stored for long periods, making them ideal for families facing economic hardship. Bean soup was a staple because it was simple to prepare, nutritious, and could be made in large batches to feed entire families for days. To make bean soup, families would soak dried beans overnight to soften them, then simmer them for hours in water or broth if available. Since meat was expensive, adding bacon or ham hocks was rare, but when possible, these would enhance the flavor of the soup. For most, the dish was flavored with salt, pepper, and sometimes onions or garlic, depending on availability. The soup's thickness depended on how much water was added, allowing families to stretch the dish by adding more liquid as needed. Bean soup was filling, high in fiber, and provided essential nutrients like protein and iron. Its adaptability made it a survival food during one of America's most difficult times. Number 10, ketchup sandwiches. Ketchup sandwiches became a desperate yet common meal during the Great Depression when even the simplest ingredients were hard to come by. Bread, one of the most basic and affordable staples, was often readily available. But sandwich fillings, like meats or cheeses, were a luxury for many families. Ketchup, a condiment that was cheap and could be found in most households, served as a substitute for more expensive ingredients. Simply spreading ketchup between slices of bread provided a quick, easy, and affordable solution to hunger. The appeal of ketchup sandwiches lay in their ability to stretch a small amount of food into something that felt more like a meal. The tangy and slightly sweet flavor of ketchup added some taste to otherwise plain bread, creating a dish that was palatable despite its simplicity. For many, ketchup sandwiches were not just a last resort, but a frequent meal that became a symbol of survival and resilience during difficult times. Children often ate them as snacks or lunches, and some adults paired them with soup or other inexpensive sides. This makeshift meal represents the harsh realities of food scarcity and the resourcefulness people had to rely on during economic hardship. Ketchup sandwiches serve as a powerful reminder of the lengths families went to make the most out of very little. Number 11, chipped beef on toast. Chipped beef on toast, commonly known as SOS, a slang term standing for same old stuff, or less politely, *** on a shingle, became a staple meal during the Great Depression due to its affordability and simplicity. The dish consists of dried or preserved beef that is thinly sliced or chipped and served in a creamy white sauce, then poured over toasted bread. The beef used was often inexpensive and highly salted, making it a cost-effective way to add protein to a meal. The cream sauce, typically made from butter, flour, and milk, helped stretch the small amount of meat, turning a few slices of dried beef into a filling dish. This sauce also softened the bread, making it easier to eat and more palatable. Since bread was a cheap, abundant item and often part of relief rations, chipped beef on toast was a go-to meal for many families. The salty, savory flavor combined with the creamy texture made it comforting, despite its humble origins. Though it started as military fare before becoming a Depression-era favorite, chipped beef on toast highlighted the ingenuity of stretching limited ingredients into satisfying meals. The dish's versatility and simplicity made it both a breakfast or dinner option, and it is still remembered fondly by those who grew up eating it during lean times. Number 12, egg drop soup. Egg drop soup became a popular, simple dish during the Great Depression because it used minimal ingredients, making it an affordable and quick meal for families facing severe food shortages. The base of the soup was usually just water or broth, often homemade from vegetable scraps or meat bones, making it easy to prepare with whatever was on hand. Eggs, a relatively inexpensive source of protein, were gently whisked into the simmering broth, creating thin, silky strands that added both texture and nutrition to the dish. This soup was especially versatile. Some families might add small amounts of leftover vegetables, like carrots or onions, to enhance the flavor, but the simplicity of egg drop soup meant that even with just water, salt, and eggs, it could provide warmth and sustenance. The gentle, comforting texture made it appealing for all ages, and it was often served as a light dinner or a quick lunch. In rural areas where chickens were kept, eggs were more accessible, making this a frequent dish for those who couldn't afford meat. Egg drop soup is a testament to how Depression-era families made the most of limited resources while ensuring that every meal, no matter how simple, was nourishing. Number 13, prune pudding. Prune pudding was a popular dessert during the Great Depression, largely because prunes were inexpensive, shelf-stable, and widely available. This dessert required minimal ingredients, making it a practical choice for families struggling to stretch their food budgets. The basic recipe involved boiling dried prunes until soft, then mashing or pureeing them into a thick mixture. Sugar, cornstarch, or flour would be added as a thickener, depending on what ingredients were available. Some recipes also included a pinch of cinnamon or lemon juice to add flavor and reduce the sweetness. Prunes were valued for their natural sweetness, which allowed families to make desserts without relying heavily on sugar, a rationed and costly ingredient. They were also a good source of nutrients, including fiber, vitamins, and minerals, making prune pudding a relatively healthy dessert option during a time when nutritional needs were difficult to meet. This dessert was typically served either warm or chilled, depending on preference and availability of cooling. For many families, prune pudding was a comforting treat that provided a sense of normalcy during a period marked by deprivation and scarcity. Number 14, liver and onions. Liver and onions became a common meal during the Great Depression due to the affordability and nutritional benefits of liver. While liver was not as desirable as other cuts of meat, it was rich in essential nutrients like iron, protein, and vitamins A and B12, making it an important source of nutrition for families who couldn't afford more expensive proteins. Onions were often paired with liver because they added flavor and sweetness to the dish, balancing out the strong metallic taste of the liver. The preparation was simple. The liver would be sliced thin, lightly dredged in flour, and then fried in a pan, often in leftover bacon grease or lard to add more richness. Onions were caramelized alongside the liver, their natural sweetness enhancing the overall flavor. This dish provided a filling and nourishing meal for families when food was scarce, and had the added benefit of being quick to prepare with minimal ingredients. Liver and onions also had a practical side. Organ meats like liver were cheaper than prime cuts of meat, yet they offered a similar nutritional profile, making them an efficient way to keep a family fed during the tough economic times of the 1930s. Number 15, Spam and crackers. Spam and crackers became a widely consumed snack and meal option during the Great Depression, providing a simple and affordable way to stretch food supplies. Spam, introduced in 1937 by Hormel, was an economical meat substitute that quickly gained popularity due to its long shelf life, availability, and versatility. It was a processed, canned pork product that required no refrigeration, which made it ideal for households with limited resources. Crackers, on the other hand, were an inexpensive and filling staple, often used in place of bread when money was tight. Pairing Spam with crackers created a quick, portable meal that could be eaten for lunch, dinner, or as a snack. The salty, fatty flavor of Spam complemented the simple crunch of crackers, making it a satisfying and nourishing combination. Many families would slice or fry the Spam and serve it on top of crackers, or they would eat it straight from the can. In rural areas or among working-class families, this combination was an easy way to incorporate protein into meals without the need for expensive fresh meats. Spam and crackers reflected the creativity and practicality of Depression-era cooking, making the most of inexpensive, preserved foods to ensure families stayed fed.